Alright guys, welcome to the next video. We are going to talk about the force org and putting your army together and stuff. We kind of skipped over the turns and the subsequent phases and the unit types. We'll have that in the subsequent videos. But right now we talk about something I think is more important in this phase of the videos. Is talking about how you're going to put together your army.
Right. Well, if you're going to start in 40k, you got to think the most important thing is what army you're going to play. And once you decide that, then you have to pick what's called the force organization chart. And this was the thing when I first started, was very, very confusing. And there isn't one person out there who really explains it. You can read it, you can go over it, but I think the reason we're doing these videos is kind of like, we're going to help you figure out how to get through the stuff and figure out, tutor you guys on just how to figure out the basics, because that's the very daunting test. I think that's what people don't want to play 40Ks, because they see this big rule book. So now we're going to cut through all that stuff and get you, get you rolling.
So one of the most important things is the force org chart. It tells you and it restricts you of what you can play at what points in order to try to keep it semi-fair. I mean, I wouldn't call everything fair in this game, but let's talk about the force org.
Well, the most important thing in your army is the HQ. You want to pick who's going to lead the army, who's going to be your general, who's going to tell the troops to go here and there. So you have to pick an HQ, and you can pick one guy. Bare minimum, you need one guy, you need one general, one captain, just one guy who's in charge of the army.
Now, before we go through that, let's explain really quick about what a unit is. Okay, a unit is just a body of either one model or very many models. They're usually separated by, if it's a character, it's one unit. If it's like your general or whatever, he's considered one unit. A group of tactical marines, 10 of them, that's one unit altogether.
Right.
Okay, and you could get a rhino, a personal transport, for that unit, which is considered a separate unit.
Correct.
Even though it comes with it. I mean, you could buy it, it comes with it, a personal transport.
Right, it's optional. You don't need to take it, but if you do, it's a separate unit.
It's considered a unit. So
now, certain units can go from 3 guys, 1 guy, 3 guys, or you can have up to 30 guys.
30 guys.
It depends on what army you're playing. And in the codex, it'll say unit type, and it'll tell you 1, 2, 10, 15, 15 to 30.
Yeah. When you pick that unit, it'll say troop choice, and then you can say how many. It'll tell you how many you can put in that unit itself, that troop choice.
Right. And speaking of troop choices, that's the next thing you want to pick. Whatever army you're playing, you have to pick troops. So now, when you get your codex, under the troops section will be a bunch of different options that you can take. You can take 2 sets of troop choice. That's what you need. So you need 1 HQ, you need 2 troop choices. So now that can be, let's pick Space Marines. Okay. If I take 2 sets of 10 tactical Space Marines and I pick 1 HQ, which could be a captain, I've basically done the bare minimum that I need to do to play 40K. Now, I can take more troops. I can take up to 6 troops, troop choices. But I need minimum of 2 troop choices and 1 HQ. That's what you need to get on the table to actually play. Now, that won't amount to many points, and you're going to have to build on that, but the bare minimum is 1 HQ, 2 troop choices.
That's what you have to remember, okay? And from there on, just grow. Now, with points, I believe it cuts off at 2,000 points. You'll get extra stuff. You'll be able to double up on the force org chart.
Well, that's if you bring allies.
If you bring allies.
Correct.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
But no matter what, if you're 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, it doesn't matter. You have, 6 troop choices, and you can actually take 2 HQ
choices.
But I know that you could play, they can actually take 4 HQ choices.
The Space Wolves. There are special rules that does mess with the force org charts, and then we're going to get into data slates and stuff like that. That's a little different. Allied, But
what we're trying to focus on right now is out of the box.
Out of the box, bare minimum, 1 HQ choice, 2 troop choices. Now, the maximum is 2 HQs, 2 elite choices?
3 of each. 3 elite, 3 heavy support, 3 fast attack, but 6 troop choices is the maximum.
Okay, and you have what kind of how 4 slots?
Yep.
HQ slots, elite slots, fast attack slots, 5 troop choices, and heavy
Heavy support. And also, the new thing in 6th edition, you can take fortifications. Yeah. So you can take a building or a...
launch pad.
Yeah, whatever. You know, one of those... you can bring a piece of terrain with you.
So that is the basic use of the Force Org chart that you have to remember when you're building your army to play the game. And now no matter how many points you play.
Now, other than special rules, your troops are the guys who score for you. So if the mission is you got to go over there and capture this objective, or you capture something, if there's a mission, if you send an elite choice over there or even an HQ choice over there, they might not be able to hold that position because they're not scoring. So
they can contest it.
Well, they can contest it, correct.
Right, but they can't hold it and claim the victory points on it. Right. There are some games where the objective is to hold the objective, and in order to do that, you have to use a troop choice.
Right.
And, anything else is you're not holding it; you're just contesting it. It's what they call contesting.
Right. And sometimes some of your HQs can make a different choice, like an elite choice, scoring. Yeah. But you have to. That's why it's very important to pick your HQ, because if you like to take, let's say, Terminators, and you take an HQ that makes them troops, then you're good. You can score with them.
Now remember, we take a unique character that can turn their Terminators into troop choices. Mm-hmm. It counts towards the max troop choice that you can have, the slots, unless it says otherwise.
Correct.
Again, special rules messes with the Force Org chart, so you have to read up on your troop units and or your units and see what they can do and what they cannot do.
Right.
Let's talk a little about Allied
detachments.
Detachments. Okay, now this is something new in 6th edition.
Right.
And that means you can take an allied detachment depending on how they work on the chart. And it basically tells you, what you can or can't ally with, and what the level of allies is. Right. Okay, there's like 4 levels of allies. Right. Battle brothers.
Right. Well, battle brothers means that if I call you up and let's go fight, we work together. The only thing you can't do is you can't go into a battle brothers troop transport. Yeah. So I never really understood where me and you go out there and we kill this army, but you won't give me a ride home. So
like, hey, come over to my house, but you got to walk. Right. You can't pick me up.
And I can't pick you up.
Yeah. Right. All right. The next level of allies is
the allies of convenience.
Allies convenience.
Well, basically what it is when you're battle brothers, you can actually use psychic powers to buff it. So let's say I'm going to cast on you a power that increases your ballistic skill.
Now, let's, for example, say his Space Marines, Ultramarines, want to cast a psychic ability on Tau. Now, they are Battle Brothers.
They are now.
They are now Battle Brothers. So that means I could cast psychic powers on his Space Marine, Ultramarines, and his Ultramarines could cast his psychic powers on the Tau.
Right, and it's also your Imperial Fists.
Right.
They're just, they're all Space Marines. They're brothers. They work together.
Now, in Allied Convenience, you can't do that.
No, you can't. We're going to work together. We're working together. Cool. I'm going to kind of tolerate you, but we're going to... You do what you do, I'll do what I do, and we're going to go fight.
Right.
And that's it. And then you have Desperate Allies.
Desperate Allies.
Now, let's say...
Any enemy of my enemy is your enemy.
Right, correct. So we're going to work together, but there is a special rule that if you get too close, you're going to roll a dice, and then if I think you're going to do something, I think you're going to do something, they kind of don't do anything that turn, because we're kind of keeping an eye on each other.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, what are they doing over there? Getting a little close. What's up with that? All right. And then, that's how much of the trust level you have when you have allies of...
desperate allies.
Desperate allies.
Now, the last one is Come the Apocalypse, which means by no means you can do that.
No way. And there's only really one army that cannot ally with anyone, which is the Tyranids. No one likes the Tyranids. So.
No. Well, the Tyranids are basically just going to eat your face anyway.
They're going to eat your face, so there's no reason to do that. So all that is listed on the chart, the Allied chart that we...
So now, as you're picking your army, if you want to play, let's say, okay, I play Grey Knights, but I want to pick Demons. No going into my second army that they can't work with each other. Right. So if you want to play that army and not ally with something that you already have, you kind of know that. So check the chart and see if they can work with each other. If you pick a Space Marine army and you can paint one blue and one orange, they're good to go.
Now, here's the little important thing is, how does the allies affect the Force Org chart?
Well, what happens is the allies can bring in a whole nother Force Org chart. So let's say my first army, the Ultramarines, I have 2 HQs and 2 troop choices. Then I bring in the Iron Hands. Well, they can bring in 2 HQs and they can bring in, they only need really 1 HQ, and then you can bring in all the troops, you can bring in all the flyers, your fast attack. You can do whatever you want. The only thing that you're limited to is your points. So you can't really bring 2,000 point armies. But if you split it down the middle, you know, you could say like my Iron Hands, I have to bring 1 HQ, 2 troop choices, and 3 heavy supports.
Right.
And my Ultramarines will have my 1 HQ, 2 troop choices, and only fast attack.
Right.
And they kind of work together that way. So you can mix and match things because certain armies are better at certain things. So you can mix and match that, or you don't even need the allies. You can just go straight one army. So,
so here's an important distinction. You have to have your primary detachment. Okay, now these are termed by attachments. Okay, or detachments. Sorry, detachments. Okay, so you have your primary detachment and your allied detachment. Now the reason why that's important because in later other things like data slates and stuff, those come in with detachments. So
and they kind of mess with the Force Org a little bit.
So you always have to have your primary. You have to always declare your primary. My primary detachment is my Ultramarines, but I'm bringing some Space Wolves to back me up. That's my allied detachment.
Now also too, one thing is your primary detachment will have your Warlord in it, which is very important. And the Warlord is basically, he's in charge of everything. And you have charts in the main rule book, or the codexes, the newer codexes that are coming out, have Warlord traits that you can roll on. And these things will either help the Warlord, help his troops, or help the army. So depending, it's all random. Some of them are great, and some of them are not so great. So it's kind of pot luck, but what your army brings is with the Warlord. And if you bring a character who has a name, sometimes the Warlord traits are picked for them. So going into it, you know. So that helps with the strategy, too. If I know that my Warlord helps with deep striking or helping my guys come in earlier, I will bring a list with a lot of deep striking. If he's good at combat or he buffs the combat or helps my combat, then I'll bring a real combat army as he's going to lead that army. The main thing with this game, you have to know what you're playing, and you have to know the rules for your army. Because you might, sometimes you play, guys leave a lot of good strategy on the table that they just didn't think of. So.
The next thing we're going to talk about is actually the point size you're going to be playing. Because if you're going to be playing a game that's 2,000 points on each side or more, you get to double up on the chart, the Force Org chart.
So you can actually bring in regularly. You can bring in 4 HQs, and you can bring in 12 troop choices and 6 elites. And so basically you double everything. But that's got to be really 2,000 or more, because to fit that all in a 2,000 point game, it's not going to happen. So they say 2,000 or more, but you're looking really like 3,000 points, and because that's a lot. You know, if you're going to bring in double of everything, really it's 4,000 points. But you got to play with it, and also it depends on if you're in a tournament, they'll give you a set amount of points. But if me and you were playing and say, hey Chung, why don't we just bring 4,000 points? We'll play all weekend.
Now here's the thing. Let's talk a little about the point values, because a lot of things that determine like how big of a game you play is dependent on point value. That's pretty much a lot of the games out there.
The point value is the real sticking point of where what you're gonna pick and how much of it you're gonna take.
A lot of times I play 2,000 points most of the time, and that lasts about 3-4 hours, depending on how fast you play and you know the rules. Sometimes a lot of the time you play is looking up rules and stuff. But we'll say on average about 2,000 points for a 40k game.
Now, 2,000 points can be very different for every army. If you play an army like Tyranids, where you can take a lot of very small pointed models, you might have 300 models on the table. And then if you play Grey Knights, which is their troops and their elites and everything are very points expensive, you might have only 30 models on the table. So
again, it depends. I mean, if you have a huge horde army, it takes a while to set up. Just to play. It's crazy. So again, 2,000 points is about the average. There are smaller games you can play out there. There's something called Combat Patrol we play a lot over at JJ's, and that's 400 points, and that's about 40 minutes. All right, next thing we're talking about really quick is setting up a game and how a game is set up when you want to play with your your friend, you basically, there's deployment type. How are you going to deploy off the table when you start the game? Is it, Dawn of War, straight up, side by side 12 inches, or is it diagonal, which I totally hate?
Yes.
So you could roll on the, on the table in the back of the book, okay? Or you could just agree with your opponent, whoever you're playing, say, let's just do the regular 12-inch, deployment.
Right. Dawn of War is usually the most popular, where you stand across the table and kind of get to it.
The next one is the mission type, meaning how you're going to win the game. Because there's various ways you can win the game, and in the back of the book there's 6, I believe.
There's 6 missions.
Yeah, you could either roll it or agree with your opponent what you want to play.
So you could just say, listen, let's go out there and kill each other.
Right.
And whoever kills the most wins. Or you can do missions where there's objectives.
Right.
So there's random things over the field, and you're going to go over there. If you capture that objective, you'll win a certain amount of points. And then there are sub-objectives, where secondary objectives, where if you kill the guy's HQ or the Warlord, you'll get a point for that. If you're in his deployment zone where he started off, you can get a point. Or whoever kills the first unit, they call that first blood, which is cool. And then later on, if you start to get a little bit more into the game, you could put 2 missions together. So there's one called the Relic, where there's only one objective. You got to kind of, it's basically capture the flag, run out, get it, and run off and hold on to it. And then you can play, let's say, Big Guns Never Tire. And you could use those missions. So you could actually do 2 things. A lot of tournaments do that. They'll have first mission, secondary mission, and it's a little bit more fun because maybe you get the Relic, but you lose on all the other stuff.
Right.
Or you can say, oh my God, we're late in the game, and I got to try to win these objectives. So,
so you could choose or roll, basically, and that's basically how you would really set up a game. The rest of the stuff I tell you how to set up is in the book. Really don't need to explain. It's really easy. That's it, guys, for this video. I hope you guys learned a little about how you're gonna build your army based on the force org chart and stuff. That's why we wanted to put this on the second video, because it could matter about the army you pick, the army you choose. Whatever you want to have fun with.
Right.
Okay, so that's it, guys. This is Chung.
And Coach.
And we will talk at you guys later. Remember, like if you like, sub if you haven't, share what you can, and favorite if you love. Talk to you guys later.